Greetings. In this video, we are going to see how we could use the output from Quora SEO software to discover which factors appear to influence our search rankings. So here I've conducted a search for SEO tips 2017, and I'm looking at the output file created. The summary tab has the tuning recommendations for how to rank well for this search term. But we want to go to the overview so we can see our correlation data. So on this tab, we have each factor. So the factors are listed by rows. And then we have the measurements. So we can see the average measurements by page for each factor. And then we have the measurements for each site. So all of the top 100, we have the measurements for each site for each factor. And from that data, we can calculate our correlation coefficients, which tell us whether these measurements appear to trend with the rank position. So you want to see a strong correlation between the measurements of a factor and the rank position of each site. And so we see here there's a lot of negative correlation coefficients, and that has to do with the slope of the line. Since we're going from a rank position where less is better, you want to be number 1 on Google, and 2 isn't as good as number 1, and 10 is much worse than number 1. You want your factor measurements to go up as you approach number 1 on Google. That's a typical good factor. And because of that, the slope of the line, when you plot the measurements with the rank position, is negative. You want a strong negative correlation to be what is typically known as a good ranking factor, where the more of that particular factor you have, the better you rank. So you would expect to see a strong negative correlation coefficient. Correlation coefficients range between +1 and 1, so they're always a percentage, so to speak. And so if you look at the correlations, you'll see they never go above 1. And a 1 is a perfect correlation. So if we had a -1, for example, for a search engine factor, that would be like a rigged coin where both sides of the coin are heads, and so its correlation for getting heads would be a 1. But it's never that obvious. It's always, a blend of things. So it typically is a value between -1 and 1, where the closer to 1 you are, the more significant that particular correlation is. So anything that achieves significance with respect to the sample size will be colored orange. Anything that was close to being significant will be blue, and anything that was not significant will be white. So when you look at those correlation coefficients and you're trying to figure out what you should be focusing on, focus on the orange, because everything else was not significant. And so here we can see our factors. Google +1s was the strongest, matches in the canonical URL, word count on the page, matches in paragraph tags, matches in the meta description, matches in headings. There are many factors that correlated. Now, if you go all the way to the bottom, you will find the positive correlation coefficients, and these are typically the bad factors. So these are the things where the more of it you had, the worse you rank. And usually when we find that, it means that there wasn't enough data. So in general, you can neglect these. But sometimes there's something there that's worth noting. And definitely ignore any correlation coefficients that are close to zero, because close to zero means there was no correlation at all, good or bad. And that's effectively a flip of a coin. So your graph will look very random and chaotic when you look at those. Or there will simply be no data. So they were all zeros or they were all the same value. All right. But this is just a short video of how you can use this to identify the factors that appear to matter. And the correlation coefficient is the best way to find the ones that mattered most. Thank you.